holy and dread night, the child of God gathers his friends one last time.
We turn our thanks to Jesus. We will join the gathering also to remember the history of Israel's liberation.
What a touch of irony this is. Even as we remember Jesus' own liberty is taken away.
It must not be. We will stand side by side to protect our friend.
No, children, we must not, for we cannot. What Jesus does now, he alone can do, and can do only as he is, alone.
Then what is there left for us to do?
We can raise our hearts and minds and voices in solemn praise of Christ's royal sacrifice. Then let us do it for the sake of God's glory and our own need. On the first day of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb was sacrificed, his disciples said to him, "Where do you want us to go and make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" So he sent two of his his disciples, saying to them, "Go into the city, and a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. Follow him. And wherever he enters, say to the owner of the house, 'The teacher asks, where is my guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' He will show you a large room upstairs, furnished and ready. Make preparations for us there." So the disciples set out and went to the city and found everything as he had told them. And they prepared the Passover meal. As we gather around this table, we come not thumbing our noses at the skeptics or those who call us enemies, but remembering how radical it is to be at this table together, to bless each other, to believe in the possibility of community that honors differences. We come to the table naming our fears, while not allowing them the last word. We come daring to be real about our lives, the pain, the wounds, and the joys. It is a radical act to disavow the lies and defy the ways things are by believing that things can be different. By passing this bread and this cup, we proclaim a promise for the present and the future. The promise is not that God will magically rescue us from the shadow of death. The promise is that we will be able to walk with one another through that shadow of death when we live believing that nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God. In the presence of our enemies, this table has been lovingly set and prepared for us. All are welcome here, believers doubters, or both. We come as we are, beloved of God. On the night before his death, with the threat of impending violence, which was palpable, Jesus gathered with his friends to observe the Passover meal. They gathered to celebrate the exodus out of oppression and the long journey toward the promised land. They shared a meal. They told the stories of their people, remembering a time when God's liberating presence gave their ancestors courage to resist despair and to journey out and on in hope. Jesus took the bread and blessed it and gave thanks and broke it. He said, "This is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He said, in effect, this bread can be broken. They can break my body. They possess the power to do that. But they cannot quench the spirit or kill the dream of God's creation. Not if you remember. Not if you refuse to forget. Not if you resist being numbed and fall asleep. Every time you eat bread together, remember me and keep the dream alive. He took the cup after supper and again gave thanks and blessed it and poured it and said, "This is the cup of the new covenant in my blood. Drink of it, all of you, and remember me." He reimagined the cup by saying, in effect, they may be able to spill my blood, but they cannot kill your hope or your experience of forgiving, liberating love. Not if you remember. He has the upper hand, and grief threatens to drown us. Our brother Jesus invites us to this table again to remember the stories and songs and symbols that inspired our ancestors before us. And he gives us permission to reimagine them in our own context. For here and now we need courage to remember, to resist despair, and to speak words of hope to each other. So we pass this bread and this cup. Let us say to one another, brother, sister, hope and know Christ's love for you. As you take your bread, remember to hold it and then dip it in the cup. Wondrous God, we give you thanks for this time around your table. As we have been united here, unite us with Christ and with our brothers and sisters throughout the world. Help us to stay united as the United Church of Christ, and send us forth to be your people of hope, both in this place and wherever we go. We ask this in Christ's name, in whose name we gather this night. Amen. As we witness the Passion of Christ, expect to be changed. If we are to follow to the garden, expect to have your eyes opened to the violence of humanity. If we presume to stand at the foot of the cross, expect to learn the meaning of sacrifice. May our offerings this night reveal our expectations. Let us receive our offerings. When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives, and Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Simon Peter said to him, "Even though all become deserters, I will not." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said vehemently, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all of them said the same. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took with him Peter and James and John and began to be distressed and agitated. And he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and keep awake." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, this hour might pass from him. He said, "Abba," which in Aramaic means Father. "For you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." He came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Could you not keep awake 1 hour? Keep awake and pray that you may not come to the time of trial. And the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again Jesus went away and prayed, saying the same words. And once more he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what to say to him. He came a 3rd time and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? Enough. The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand." Immediately while Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him there was a crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and scribes and the elders. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." So when he came, he went up to him at once and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. and they laid hands on him and arrested him. Then Jesus said to them, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But let the scriptures be fulfilled." All of them deserted him and fled. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes were assembled. Peter had followed at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he was sitting with the guards warming himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she stared at him and said, "You also were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it, saying, "I do not know or understand what you're talking about." And he went out into the forecourt. Then the cock crowed. And the servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to the bystanders, "This man is one of them." But he again denied it. Then after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." But he began to curse and he swore an oath, "I do not know this man you are talking about." At that moment, the cock crowed for the second time. Then Peter remembered what Jesus said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept.
Hello, friend.
Judas, what are you doing here?
Simon Peter, you're the second one to ask me that question in the last 24 hours.
What are you doing here?
I'm remembering. It's what he said to do right here just hours ago, wasn't it? Remember me. Well, that's what I'm doing here, Simon. I'm remembering. What are you doing here?
Forgetting. Wishing I could. I'd give anything to lose my memory here. Right now, I can't think of anything more horrible than remembering. I should think you'd find your own memories a little unbearable.
Unbearable. Yes. Yeah, I'd say unbearable is the right word. I don't think I'll bear them much longer. But by heaven, I'm bearing my memories now, bearing them like a cross.
You can't say that, Judas. You have no right.
No, I don't have the right, but I do have the need to remember where I've been with him and what I've done to him. So do you, Simon.
I'm not sure it's safe. Do you think it's safe here?
It's a safe place. It's a terrifying place. Shall I tell you where I was in my mind when you came in?
Was I there?
You were always there, Simon. My story and your story are very much the same. You were there. It was last Sabbath at Bethany, the supper we had together.
I remember. Why are you thinking of it now?
Because death was all over him then. just as sure as death is all over him now. In the space of 5 days, he fed us 2 suppers of death.
Martha fed us that night. She's a lot like you.
And like you, we're a trio. You and Martha and me. People who know how to get things done. Not afraid to say what has to be said or to take charge when somebody needs to. But I tell you, it made my skin crawl to sit there beside her brother, the ex-cadaver. And Mary, how much perfume did she soak him in? A gallon? Do you know how much that kind costs? To anoint him with a little would have been a wonderful gesture, but to put all of it on him, and Jesus just sitting there and letting himself be the object of all that. He changed, didn't he? He used to be like you and me and Martha. He used to get things done, but then he turned quiet, patient, passive. Did you hear it? He says, "This is for my burial." Burial! I enlisted to follow a commander, not a corpse. And Simon, tonight in the garden, when I pulled his face to my face to kiss him, I smelled it. I smelled his sweat. I smelled the earth on him. And underneath, I swear I smelled a trace of that perfume still there. Her lavish love. My kiss of death. He kept them both.
It's this night's meal I can't forget. He was so right. I did not understand what he was doing when he began washing our feet.
You're not the only confused one here. What he said made no sense. I always thought that action, political action, was enough.
But he went the way of the heart.
Yes, and the way of the heart can get you hung up on a cross just as sure as political action against Rome will.
Was it really his way or our way that put him there?
He knew what he was doing and where it was leading him. I didn't always believe that, but you heard it. This is my body and this is my blood. He knew. It was as if he wanted it.
I longed for this Passover for so long. I dreamed of the dances and the songs and the food, the memories we would share. But where is the cheer of Passover now? Where is the memory of deliverance from death and persecution now? Where is our hope now?
How could his hands on my feet make me feel clean? Especially after he turned my secret loose into the room. One of you will betray me. It was like a knife cut me open, and my heart burst. I couldn't look at him. For half a second, I had a hope that it wouldn't be me. I hoped he knew something I didn't, that maybe in the end, I wouldn't have it in me. But it was in me, and he knew it. He took a piece of bread and dipped it in the dish and fed me with it. He fed me and said, "What you are going to do quickly." I walked from the room on freshly washed feet to taste the bread from his hand on my tongue. I left him, went out into the night, went to the chief priests. I had it arranged. They gave me money. I'd given up my work to follow him. I'd given up everything. I had to have something to live on for a while. I took the money and I told them I'd take them to his secret place in the garden.
Why did you do it?
I did it because he wouldn't act. And I wanted him to act. I did it because I was angry and hurt. I did it for the money. I did it because I could see, any fool could see he was finished. They were going to get him. They didn't need me. And he was going to let them do it. I did it because I was scared of what would happen to me. I did it because I'm tired. I did it because I hate him. I did it because I love him. Don't you see? I haven't got a reason. I've got a war. I am a war. Jesus of Nazareth is the casualty of the war in me. What happened after I left?
We finished the meal, then we sang together, and he asked us to go to the garden with him. He seemed to want us there while he prayed, but we all got too comfortable and fell asleep. We awakened to his voice. Behold, the hour is at hand.
That's when I came.
Yes, and we both know what happened next. In many ways, this has been the longest night of my life. And yet it all seems to have happened so quickly. Before I even knew what I was doing, I had denied him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times.
You said that you would.
Yes, and I denied that too. No, Lord, not even if I have to die, I will never deny you. I was so quick to speak with sure faith in him, while it was safe.
But when you were threatened, it was different.
It was so natural to try to protect yourself. I had to protect myself. What good would it accomplish if 2 of us were in jail? You certainly protected yourself in all of this.
We've all done it, Simon, in different ways. But we've all done it to him. Now, can we live with ourselves for it?
They were so accusing, Judas, so sinister. You were one of his followers. The words came like an instinct. No, you are mistaken. They broke into laughter, but not a friendly or happy laughter. They were mocking my shame. All I could do was disappear into the shadow. Then it happened again. I went into the courtyard to warm myself by the fire. One of them by the fire said, "Were you not in the garden with him?" "No, I did not know him." I turned and ran into the street. But someone grabbed me and stared in my face and said, "He is a Galilean. Surely you were with him." "I am not. I never knew him." And at that moment, I heard a rooster crowing in the distance, announcing my guilt to all the world. I wrestled free from the man's grasp and ran into the shadows and away. No place seemed safe. I tried to rest, but just as I would slip off to sleep, I would awaken to his voice. "Could you now watch 1 hour for me? Peter, you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows this day. Peter, I will never awaken again without a fresh memory of how I abandoned him."
Why did you come back here?
I don't know. Something drew me here. Something in me longing for proof that none of this happened. Wondering who else might be here. I didn't expect you.
We're not much different, Peter.
No, I guess maybe we're not. For as the prophet Isaiah says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned in our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all.